Hello and welcome to another episode of Loose Canon. We are back again talking about Destiny lore, as we always do. This week we are going to go back to Season of the Plunder and talk about one of the lore books from there, because next week, unless I missed something and I just somehow didn't complete it, next week is when the Persona lore book of this season ends, which we talked about last week. So on our next episode, we'll finish the Persona lore book, and I took a little bit of a peek of what's being talked about, and it's getting pretty good. I'm really
Nice.
excited for the future of that. So, how have you been, man? It's been 2 weeks as always.
Yeah, good. How about you? I've been just kind of running around in circles lately.
Yeah, I
I've
feel
got
that.
I've got some I've got some stuff finally finished, so feeling good about that finally.
Hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, basically same. It's been like one chore after another, just trying to get things
Yeah.
how I want them to be. You can't see it. I bought another IKEA shelf over here, and now I have two of
Nice.
them to hold all my stuff. And so like it's a calyx, and what I'm doing now is each little I have like a cubby designated for each Destiny release. So it's like Destiny 1, uh all encompassing, Destiny 2, and then Shadowkeep, Forsaken, etc.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wish my walls were covered in those dumb IKEA bookshelves. I
Yeah.
so far I've got like five of them, and one wall is covered, but I honestly just want to take the entire upstairs game room slash
Hmm.
nook and just convert it all to show.
That's really handy. I'd
Yeah,
be able to have like more space for them if I didn't have a closet, but I use the closet for things too in this room here.
sure. Yeah.
And my wife gave me a wonderful idea that she regretted instantly. She was like, if I were to get a two by two calyx, I can put it in between the two that I have now and kind of make like a makeshift entertainment system, and I can get like a small screen TV. And because lately I've been looking into how to, my desk right now has a
Uh-huh.
computer, a PS5, and a Switch, and I've been trying to figure out how I could also get my PS3 and PS2 hooked up here. And she's
So
like, "Don't do that. Just get another IKEA shelf, get a new TV, and then set it up there, and then we can get some like nice single-seater chairs over here." And I was like, "Yes, that is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spend $1,000 on just this nonsense."
yeah, that's the problem. It's so expensive. It's just
Yeah,
like you go, "Oh, this is such a great idea," and then you go to ring it all up, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is instant."
yeah,
Even IKEA. I mean, IKEA's. We all know it's cheap stuff. Have you heard
yeah.
of the IKEA effect?
No.
Okay, so there's this concept that IKEA furniture is way more valuable because you put it together. So like if you
Oh, like you
sell
care
stuff,
about it more?
yeah, so because you took the time to put it together, even if you effed it up, but like if you go to sell it at a garage sale, you inherently apply a much higher value than it's really should be worth just
Yeah.
because you had to suffer through putting it together.
I would
So there's
never
this.
buy IKEA furniture, or like I don't know if you have Wayfair out there, Wayfair furniture.
Yeah, yeah.
I would never buy that at a garage sale unless it was like dirt cheap, because it's like, no
Right.
offense, but like it is a
Right.
cheaper product. I have no idea if you abused it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's sad. It's sad because, like, when you've used the IKEA furniture and you're done with it, I mean, it's almost like you just want to throw it away because the hassle is way worse.
yeah, yeah.
It,
I
it,
don't know how to take this thing apart.
yeah, I mean, when you go to take it apart, it just falls apart in your hand. I mean, like all the little particle board pieces, and I mean, no offense to IKEA as a business because they obviously are making tons of money, even though they're kind of demons in a way, some way. But they, geez, man, like this stuff, as modular as it is, it's not really reusable.
Well, I
You
mean,
use
I've
it,
had I've
that's
had
it.
my shelf for a few years now. It's been doing its work.
Yeah, but it's because it stays where it's at.
Oh yeah, okay. And that's kind of what I mean. Like, I would never buy it used. I would only ever buy
Yeah,
it new.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
it's not
you have a good.
expensive. So, Relatively speaking, it's not expensive. $80 for like a large shelf like that is not expensive.
Right.
My desk is
But
an
you know
IKEA
it,
desk.
and it's so heavy. Like,
Oh my
what is
god,
the
it is.
deal?
Because my desk is it's actually a countertop. So it's an inch and a half of well, it's like an inch of solid wood,
Yeah.
or maybe I got it reversed. It's solid wood, particle board, solid wood, and it's like a quarter inch on each side. So
Yeah.
like if I wanted to, if I ever wanted to,
Flip it.
I could sand it down. Like if something like damaged happened to it, I could sand like the top down a good bit, and it's like really fucking really sturdy. Can't recommend it enough.
Good.
What I want to know is, when is IKEA going to invent Glimmer? Because that is the future. You can just program it, and that's something that's never really been like talked about, like actually in game. How Glimmer is programmable matter, and for that reason, it's used as currency. Because it's like, why would you want currency when you can just
Right.
create with Glimmer? Now I get that. How do you create with Glimmer? Do you need a degree? Do you bring it to a shop? Do you have it at your home? Like, what is the process? I'm intrigued.
I mean, at this point in Destiny lore, they could just say an Ahamkara wish is created freaking glim.
Okay, but I mean, it's like, if they wanted to tell me that it's like, it's kind of like you have your cell phone, you have your computer, you have a TV, and you have your Glimmer constructor. Like, these are like household staple
Like a
electronics.
Glimmer 3D printer
Yeah, like a Glimmer 3D printer, and it's you just kind of put your Glimmer on a platform, and the
and make
constructor
whatever.
deconstructs the Glimmer and then reconstructs it as whatever it is. And it's like, that's fine, that's cool. How does anything get made?
No idea.
It's like Sony's gonna release the PlayStation 70 or whatever, and it's just like, okay, just take your Glimmer. We're not gonna see profit from this, but just take your Glimmer and you can just start printing your PS70s.
Yeah, who knows?
It is a
I
bit of a
mean,
hole in
what
the logic.
like so the matter itself. Yeah, I know. This is what's weird. Is like there's this conundrum, right? So the matter itself is programmable, but you can't take other matter and just say it's programmable, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
I guess in a way you could technically take a rock and say, "Hey, Ghost, put that in my ship, for me," and it'll because our Ghost has done stuff like that with other things, but it's still a rock.
Can you reprogram programmed Glimmer?
That's what I was trying to get at. Like
I feel like you
if you
can't.
that's what I was saying. Like if you turned it into a chess piece,
Yeah. But you
what
do. When you dismantle a chess piece, you get Glimmer.
you get Glimmer, right? That's what I'm saying. So like everything that was once programmable Glimmer, when you dismantle it, it goes back to programmable Glimmer.
How does that
Like
not
it
just fuck up the
like it's
economy?
like its base state will always be at its very basic uh element is programmable. So like there's a real rock, but then there's a rock you programmable glimmered.
You think they
I
would
don't
make
even know.
Glimmers?
I don't even know if I would be using the verbiage correctly on that. So you have a hat, a cowboy hat. You dismantle it. Now it's programmable glimmer, and then you give it to your buddy, and he turns it into a cowboy hat again.
The idea that Glimmer is just there to program into whatever you desire completely ruins everything. It can never be explained, because if they're like, and this is how the Glimmer works, and it's like, so you're telling me I can say, hey Glimmer, give me uh like, what's a god roll of this season, right?
Oh, right, right.
Like, give
Because
me a
it's so
retrofit
valuable.
escapade with repulsor brace and firing line, or whatever the hell you're looking for with it.
Right, right. So that's the other thing that's kind of funny because so how does the chance become involved with that, right? Because you don't know specifically what you're going to get when you trade your glimmer for a gun, right? There are certain guns like Banshee will sell these guns that he made. he'll exchange them for glimmer. But there are things that you get from an engram that just randomly happen.
Oh my god, I've never thought about the systems in this game like this before. Because now I'm thinking we give Banshee weapon parts where it's like, here you go, and he's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Here you go, and he just gives us the garbage back. Like
Awesome. I know, kind of. Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
like because if we're actually going to Banshee, we should be able, like, which has happened. Cade 6 requested Banshee make an Ace of Spades for his favorite hunter in Destiny 1. That's how we got the original
Right.
Ace of Spades. That is not the one that we use now in Destiny 2. That is lost to us. It was lost in the Red War. But so Cade went there and said, "Hey, let me get an Ace of Spades made. Here you go, money." And then he walks away with his fucking exotic gun. And meanwhile, we're doing a fucking quest to prove that we're worthy of it. And it's just like
Uh,
everything you want could just be obtained, but it's people are just fucking disrespecting Banshee and throwing their garbage at him. That's why.
so so okay, I don't know. I mean, so okay. Remember when we had Sapphire Wire and Hadron, whatever the hell
Yeah.
it was,
It was Sapphire Wire, Hadronic Essence, and
Plasteel.
yeah, it was plasteel plating.
Yeah. So and then they combined all that because they were like, yeah, we don't need
Armor
class specific.
materials. Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
need it to
yeah,
be class exclusive. Oh,
yeah. And so then they made the armor materials, which had all of them and the little icon and whatnot.
is that even a
But
thing
like,
anymore? That's gone too, right?
right, so they took that away again. But there was you had to like for certain items you had to have enough material and glimmer to trade to the vendor, like Rahul,
Hmm.
in order to for him to make you either an engram or a weapon. Like he was, here's your quest, go do this and bring me back enough crap so that I can make it for you.
I mean, I know it's not really
Yeah, I know.
capitalist society in the classical sense, but thinking about it, man, Destiny's society kind of sucks.
No, no. You know, the funniest thing is, and it will always be, it'll be like there's those specific holes in Destiny, in the lore and in the game. And one of them that it will always be there in the back of my mind is Zer's black market coupon.
Hmm.
That's the funniest thing I ever saw in D1. Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, it's first of all, it's Zer. What the hell, black market coupon?
Was that how you got Thorn?
Yeah, I think so.
It was one of those exotic missives, right? Where
Yeah,
where you go to the bounty board and you turn in a bunch of bounties and you hope you get the exotic quest. You
yeah.
can only hold one at a time, something like that.
That was horrible back then. I mean, in
Yeah.
comparison to now, but like, yeah. What?
Yeah, because it was Bad Juju, Thorn, Invective, and there was a fourth one. Can't remember.
Yes, you are correct.
Man. Well, uh, is, is it Chinese New Year now, or has it just passed? How does it?
It
Because I know it's
has
not January
no.
1st.
Well, to them, like right now, it's about to happen. I think. What time is it there in China?
Well, I mean, is it today?
Well, it's the 23rd.
Sunday, January 22nd, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it has already happened.
Okay. So Chinese New Year is in full effect.
Oh, Chinese New Year officially begins on January 22nd and ends on February 1st. So happy Chinese
Right.
New Year. And
Yeah. There you go. Happy Chinese New Year. We're on schedule.
look at that. And perfectly timed. We actually have a whole bunch of Chinese New Year themed things to talk about. You want to get into those?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the lore card from Destiny Army Defined, and it has to do with the Chinese New Year. Last year I did the Great Race, so if you want to look back on that one, find it on Destiny Armory Find and kind of like scan through lore cards. I mean, there's 52 weeks in a year. It's not that hard to just go back and look at all the images in the Twitter feed and find whatever you want to on Destiny Armory. Find, but
Yeah.
we tackled the Great Race, which has to do with how all the animals became symbols for each month of the year, and I didn't really dive into what is Chinese New
Oh
Year.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I think what was last year? Last year was the rat, I believe, or something like that.
I will look it up.
It was no, it would be the one before the rabbit. So
Year of the Tiger.
yeah, tiger. There you go. All right, so Chinese New Year. Um, if you look at the items that are at Eververse right now, they're themed because of the Chinese New Year, and so there's a lot of red and gold, and even the emblem has the red and gold motif.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is kind of a double lore card because this year is the year of the rabbit, and I'm a rabbit, so it's my
Oh, are
year.
you? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, so prosperity for me, yay! But each so traditional red envelopes, fireworks, and bright lights are offered to ward off the yearly terror of the sea monster of the dark Nyan. Yeah, this is where it gets interesting because you ever see the Chinese New Year parades? You wonder like what's up with the big serpent dragon that's going through the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
and why is there so much red, and what are the envelopes for, and what are the firecrackers for, and what are the what does all this mean, right? Well, we're about to get into it. So, if you look at the motif for the guns, and you can right off the bat you can see there's the rabbit references, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Lee Perrine Jubilation, the year that's basically what lunar lagomorph shell, and in the flavor text for ghosts who carry good fortune, you can see there's like an obvious um, thing that's happening. Moon shadow hop, rabbit, right? Faster than the rabbit on the moon can run,
Mm-hmm.
and then rabbit's chase, which is the sparrow, fleet of foot, never caught. So these are all revolving around the Chinese New Year and the rabbit. And um, iconically, in Destiny, the game, we have the jade rabbit.
Yep.
So they're using the same jade rabbit form for a lot of this. And so it's still kind of an ominous character, even though we have some lore about the jade rabbit now. We still don't know specifically what the jade rabbit really was in the game. So it's been always that kind of thing that's always been there. But it's
Do you
really
think
cool
it's more than
because
just like an old folktale?
I, I have no idea if it was like really just a folktale or just some really ultra fast racing jade rabbit person that went off into just went too fast one day. It just disappeared, or if it was just a folklore that they shared about this jade rabbit character that nobody could ever catch or find, or
Hmm.
it's almost like Racer X from Speed Racer. Like we don't know, and it could be that the Jade Rabbit was somebody we see every day all along, like you know whatever their other persona. What do they call that when a superhero has a separate
Secret
identity?
identity.
Yeah, so their secret identity could be the Jade Rabbit all along. Like, what if it was Ikora?
I mean,
I'm not saying that it is, but just like something like that, that would have been really shocking.
I feel like it's just a nod to the folktale, personally.
Sure. Yeah. Same. The moon rabbit. We all know
Yeah.
about the moon rabbit, the rabbit in the moon, and so that's Chinese folklore as well. So getting into it, each year is associated with one of the 12 animals from the Heavenly Gate race folklore. We did that one last year. 2023 is the year of the rabbit. According to the folklore, the Jade Emperor wanted to select 12 animals to be his guards. He sent an immortal being into man's world to spread the message that earlier one went through the heavenly gate, the better the rank one would have. So this is the origin for the Chinese zodiac. So if you look at the Chinese zodiac, you can see they all go. It's 12. It starts rat, ox, tiger, then rabbit. And so rabbit would be the fourth in line, and we're in the year of the. So the year of the rabbit symbolism is vigilance, wittiness, cautiousness, deftness, self protection, prosperity, and of course the moon. Um, the New Year traditions, however, come from another story. So this is where we kind of diverge. So this is the year of rabbit, and it's very focused on the year of the rabbit. But I wanted to explain what the heck is the Chinese. Um, so according to the ancient Chinese legend, a dark sea monster named Nian would go on shore after resting on the ocean floor at the end of each Lunar New Year, and he would hunt people and livestock. Villagers would escape to remote mountains to avoid Nian's attack until a welcome, strange old man with silver hair but bright, piercing eyes came to visit. He was a beggar in torn clothes, walking a stick, but because of panic, nobody cared about this newcomer. An elderly woman from the east of the village came to the beggar and gave him some food. So she told him of the monster Nyan and warned him to flee with the others. However, the old beggar requested to stay one night in the old woman's house. He would remove the beast as payment. So already this is getting good. At midnight, the monster broke into the village as normal, but it sensed this house was occupied, where all the doors and the windows were pasted with red papers and many candles were lit inside. The beast swooped to the front door, but at that very moment, loud cracking sounds burst from all around the courtyard. And the front door was quickly opened, revealing the old man in a red gown, and he was roaring with laughter. The deathly frightened Nyan fled back into the darkness. So the old man, the old beggar, scared him. The next day, the town was still unharmed, and the elderly woman told everyone it was because of the old beggar's promise. The villagers wanted proof, so they went to the house and discovered the red papers on the doors and the windows, candles in the house, and the burnt bamboo in the courtyard. So the traditional bamboo burning, crackling, that was what later became fireworks. Uh, the red color and bright light were found to be these magic keys of scaring away this monster every year. So this was
Huh.
what started the tradition because of this old beggar and because of being nice to the old beggar, I guess, in a way, and giving him a place to stay. He gave this gift of knowledge, which was basically the magic key to ward off this evil monster that would wreak havoc.
So obviously the beggar was God, right?
I mean,
Like
they didn't.
that's the trope that the old beggar comes down. It's secretly like the god of
Sure. I mean,
whatever region.
it's in there, but like it never explicitly states it in the Chinese folklore, and so like the Chinese folklore is very long-winded. So I did a like
Mm.
this is the like hyper, condensed version that I'm giving you.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but obviously it's a what would it be like a ambiguous character. You can't assign any like specific definition for this man.
I
But
mean,
all you know,
he showed up out of nowhere. He knew how to
uh-huh,
fight the monster, and then he
had
left.
bright eyes. I mean, bright eyes, and then yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So it's kind of like showing you never assume things about people based on their appearance, right?
yeah, I guess
Because they
so.
might because they might be the key to your prosperity.
Okay, well, that's a
So
nicer
the
way to say it because I was going to say because they
yes,
might be God, and it's like ugh,
I mean in a way. So like
any one
this
of
is
us
where
can
we
be
get
God.
this. Yeah, this is where we get like way off because Chinese folklore and asterism goes way further back in time than a lot of the things we know as far as religion and
Yeah,
folklore. So,
like the since it is Year of the Rabbit, we're talking a lot about Jade Rabbit. Like that the story of the rabbit and the moon, the story of the Jade Rabbit, like it's not just China. It's like it's a bunch of countries from
Yep.
like Eastern Asia, and it actually goes even further west than you'd probably imagine. Because I was just looking it up, and apparently there's actually a Mexican
Yeah,
tale
there is.
that
Yeah,
is
there is.
basically the same fucking story. And it's like, how did this
Well, and
span the
then
world?
so you got to think like back then. I mean, a lot of these folklore traditions and practices predate China. It's just that the Chinese made it into
Mm,
what it is now, right?
yeah,
So
they're
before
just the
China,
most recent game of telephone.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. So before the Chinese, there were the steppe people and the Mongolians and Persians and all of
Hmm,
that
hmm.
war and stuff happened for tons of years, and you know these these empires rose and fell over the years. I mean, even the Native Americans we know came from the ice bridge, which was a lot of Asian steppe people crossing the ice bridge over to North America before, a lot of these countries and empires were ever formed.
So,
Uh,
just for anyone who's confused what he means by the ice bridge, he means like back in the Ice Age era where Russia and Alaska were bridged by ice, and
yeah,
obviously as the Earth warmed up, the bridge melted. It is no longer there.
which is another thing that goes hand in hand with a lot of flood theories and stories is this idea of land completely just disappearing because of water rising on peaks of mountains that are now under the ocean floor. So we have a lot of like flood tales and stories of Atlantis and all of these things that morphed out of this idea that there was a great deluge and basically the earth was washed of certain
Do you think?
things. And yeah, go ahead.
Do you think people from like hundreds of years ago, like, so like there were people who actually lived through it and they had the firsthand experience of what happened.
Sure.
Like, for example, we'll say Atlantis. Like, Atlantis was a real place, but as the earth warmed from like the ice age and stuff, waters rose, and Atlantis, an actual real place, an actual real city, just fell under the water. A thing that could
I,
happen in
that's
today's
the,
age.
yeah, that's one of the wonders. That's kind of one of the mysteries and wonders of the world is like if that really existed or not. But a lot of people believe, or a lot of scientists and historians believe that it was folklore that was basically a game of telephone that just
Yeah,
expanded.
yeah, and so let's assume that truly happened, and there were groups of people who witnessed it happen, who heard about it
Hmm?
secondhand. Maybe they didn't watch it
Yeah.
themselves, but they knew it was there, and it's not there anymore, so it was clearly underwater.
Yep.
Like things like that. Do you think they had like grandkids and maybe even great grandkids that are just like, sure, grandpa, like not
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
completely like a city
Absolutely.
did not fall into the sea, and he's like, I saw it, and it's just
Yeah.
like, uh-huh.
Absolutely. All the time. I mean, this probably went on forever, and so I mean they've even found caves that where people were dwelling in because they were basically landlocked when floods happened.
Uh-huh.
So these people were stuck on these islands that were out in the middle of everywhere, just out in so many places, and so they're kind of left to their own devices. So I mean this doesn't happen overnight. Like the funny thing about apocalypses that you read about in sci-fi and even in Destiny and all that, it's always presented to you in a way that feels like it was overnight. Most apocalyptic events happened over many, many years, sometimes hundreds. So you think about generations, generations of people experiencing one long apocalyptic event, which
Mm-hmm.
would be, say, for instance, their mountain falling apart, or earthquakes, or freaking volcanoes, or floods, or ice bridges melting, or just all of these things that can happen that create these. We better do something to avoid this from happening again. So let's tell the story of it.
Hmm.
Maybe we're responsible for it, right? You don't know. I mean, primitive people had.
I mean, I doubt they felt any responsibility for things changing.
I mean, you'd be surprised. Like the indigenous
No, that's
people
fair.
of
Yeah.
yeah, the indigenous
Like,
people of Australia, for one. They're some of the oldest people on the planet.
ancient cultures, like the more you look into it, the more you're just like, oh no, they were like legit advanced, and we're just
Yeah.
pretending that they weren't.
Yeah.
Because we
So
don't we don't want to believe that like a society that was on par with us could ever fall, but probably
yeah.
has a few times already.
And so that's the other thing is that empires rise and fall, and they call those ages because
Hmm.
they're the ages of empires that rise and fall. And so there's this belief that there's a cyclical thing where humans can only get so big before they basically implode or destruct on themselves. And they create these ages.
I thought it was that oceans rise and empires fall.
I didn't play that game, but
Oh,
yeah, that
game
sound
that was
sound.
that was Hamilton.
Oh,
The fucking like
oh,
the
that's funny.
the guy that does all the spitting sings that. The
Oh,
the
well,
king, whatever. He's
when I
funny.
said Empire of Ages, I suddenly
Oh,
realized
okay. I see where you were going.
I said a game. Anyway, we could spend all day talking about that, but just like that's the history, that's the pool of wisdom and folklore that the world is, is using
Hmm.
as the bedrock for a lot of these stories. And China and Chinese culture is very much rooted in a lot of that. So
Hmm.
these things are kind of alien to the Westerners of the world because we're relatively new in a lot of our ideologies,
Yeah.
folkloric practices, and storytelling and
Put on
whatnot.
paperback.
So even a lot of the stuff from their world crosses into ours, and we kind so going back to the story, um, the villagers obviously wanted proof, and so they saw the proof basically from the old man, uh, and he's gone. And so these traditions that were inherited today um, became embedded in Chinese New Year. And so this starts off the Chinese New Year and Spring Festival. But here's another cool little fact. Um, it's also called Guanyan, which means surviving in the Nyan's attack. The red is the most popular color for the festival celebration, and it's part of the dress code.
Hmm.
Um, ca- Called Hongbao in Mandarin, the red envelopes filled with money are typically only given to children or unmarried adults with no job. The color red denotes good luck, fortune, and happiness abundance in the Chinese culture and is often worn used for decor in other celebrations. So if you think about Chinese, uh, you know, their the way they dress and whatnot, a lot of red pop, a lot of red and gold, and so that's why there's red and gold all of these things. You didn't know, now you know. Um, and just like we talked about at the beginning, Chinese New Year 2023 falls on Sunday, January 22nd. Then 2023, and of course, the celebrations culminate with the Lantern Festival, February 5th, 2020, which we've talked about the Lantern Festival on Destiny Armory Defined as well, because we had lanterns dawning event. What
Very
is this pipe?
fascinating. Um, when you said that like America was pretty new, obviously you mean like modern day America is pretty new
Yeah,
because there were people here before us that probably had
sure.
their own folklore that we just kind of squashed out. But beyond that specifically, uh, you said how we were new, and it reminded me of one of my favorite movies. It's Interstate 60. Stories of the Road. I think Interstate 60 would get it, but in it is a character named O.W. Grant. It stands for One Wish Grant, and because he goes around and he just grants people one wish, and in most cases it's gonna fuck them over, and so he has this little monkey pipe, and so I got the monkey pipe.
Nice.
And you made me really excited. I had to share that. It's a really good movie. Um, OW is like America's first folklore, like modern America's first folklore, because we we're too young. All we do is borrow other other countries'
Sure.
folklores. And so
Ugh.
that it was an interesting take for you to have there.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
it's no wonder there are so many different versions of the same stories. Think about them. You know, your family traditions move. People have rogue societies and cultures, and then the ones that really kind of plant themselves and make cities and villages, and the ones that are responsible for kind of carrying on a lot of the things. But I I often am just like saddened by the millions of folklores and stories and traditions that were just washed.
Mm-hmm.
Entire races of people were just erased from
Yeah.
history.
It's crazy to think how many stories just get lost throughout
Yeah,
time.
the Americas are probably one of the saddest of. If you've ever read, I mean, if you ever read some of these books that are popular, like Howard Zinn, famous author, what happened basically to all the indigenous, find out that it's not just Canada, America, Mexico, South America. It's millions of indigenous people with their own societies, laws, empires, structures, family traditions that were just basically,
Yeah.
and that's just here.
Sorry, I just saw I guess fish skin can be grafted onto burn victims.
What the heck?
Yeah, sorry, I just looked at my screen and that's what I saw. So it
You
just
ready?
really knocked me off my train of thought.
Happy Chinese New Year, I
Happy
guess.
Chinese New Year. If you get burned, don't worry. You can have fish skin instead.
Be ready for the next deluge.
Yeah. Um. I really just didn't know what to say. Have you been enjoying the season as it's been
I,
kind of coming to its end?
yes,
Touch on that a
so
little bit.
my favorite things in Destiny are the X, of
Or the EXO.
course. Yeah, yeah, and the EXO, and then the EXO, because there's more EXO that we don't even talk about. But so far, all of the EXO stuff and the EXOs we've been
Yeah,
talking about.
they've been doing a really great job with it.
Yeah,
This week Rasputin mentioned how he's almost finished with his body. So it feels like next week he might like be able to walk out of the helm. Can I ask you, do you know what this dog that everyone's talking about? I have not seen a dog anywhere.
wait a minute, you haven't done the dog?
Where is there a dog?
You did the dog with the orbs
I never
in
did a dog.
the.
I never saw a dog at any point in this season, but people keep
Well,
telling me it's
you
there.
you go to the exotic quest place, the what is it called, the
The
yeah,
Seraph's shield.
yeah, it's Seraph's Shield Station, and you
Okay.
do all the balls, the orbs, and then you find the dog there and you rescue him. Basically.
Oh, I haven't opened the final door yet.
There you go.
Oh,
And
okay.
then all of a sudden you go back to the helm and the dog's there,
Because remember
and you can.
last episode, I was going to finish
Yeah,
my orb run, and then it kicked me
didn't
out right
do
at the
it.
boss. The last
Yeah,
orb I needed was in after the boss room, and
yeah,
then I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna fucking do it that Sunday when there's gonna be another time to go do it again in 2 days." So I waited until Tuesday, knocked them both out in one, but then I just knocked out the final orb. I never went back again to open the door. There's a fucking dog in there.
well, I think so. I think that's how. I haven't done it either, but yeah, I think that's how it
Oh,
works.
okay.
So
Just
you go
blind
and do the
leading the
final
blind. Oh my
door.
god.
Well, no, like it might just be, that you do that and then you go somewhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard, because Bungie was talking about how the dog is gonna stay in the helm
Yeah,
afterwards, I guess, Maybe not immediately, but they're gonna come back. And you can pet the dog. Can you pet the dog?
You can pet the dog.
Oh my god, man! I completely missed it. I, I
But
don't feel like it's my fault though, because everyone was fucking no, because everyone was glitching into that room to find the dog early. So it's just like by the time that it was like appropriate dogs, excuse me, dog save week, the hype had already been exposed, and I had missed it
you're
because I
right.
was like not looking at spoilers for what's in that room, and then
It There's
yeah,
always people that break it, man. It's just
yeah,
like I just want one time. I
and I
just
mean, do
want
it,
it to be on.
yeah. Play how you want to play. I'm not gonna get upset with you because you used whatever the fucking sword is that makes you allows you to skip through the lasers. You know, that's smart for
Yeah.
you. Oh,
Well,
okay. Mother Codfish said it's a jumping puzzle. The dog's at in the end of the puzzle. Oh, well, that's where the room is. It's right after the end of the jumping puzzle, I
okay,
imagine.
cool.
So I
So
imagine
then
you're on the right track.
getting there. I'm a filthy casual, so
I mean, I kind of have. It's weird how like hardcore I played this season because within like 3 weeks I was at rank 100, where the past several seasons it's like, oh, the season ends in 2 weeks. I better
yeah, yeah,
better finish off these 30 ranks, and
right.
it's just you miss things because like I'm not doing everything. I'm having a
Well,
good time playing, but I'm not doing everything.
it exponentially gets faster anyway at the end.
Yeah,
So like I don't worry anymore. I used to worry a lot.
yeah.
In D1, I mean, there was reset day. You had to
Hmm.
do things. You
Hmm.
went and maximize your efficiency because
Yep.
there was such a limited amount of stuff, and you had to wait an entire week. And if you didn't do it before the week was up, you were screwed. So you had to do it, and you
Yeah.
felt compelled to do it. And it was the only way you could keep up with current events because the you know what was
Yeah.
it, the light level, not power level. Back then it was
Yeah.
light
Yeah. It
level.
was light level in D1.
If you didn't have the light level, you can do whatever was coming up next.
And it was much more strict in D1 too. Like
Yeah,
they kind of broke it up into tens for D2,
yeah,
which is kind of silly because they broke it up into tens, but then only the deltas matter. So it's like they
yeah,
might as
yeah.
well have
They could have
not.
just undid it. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope they get rid of light level. I'm an advocate for that.
same.
I'm not sure if they're going to based on what they've said so far, but I still hope they do. Early D2, I'm looking at a case filled with all the D2 title medals.
Yeah,
I had like everyone. There was like a couple that I missed, like raid specific. Black Armory was one that I missed. I forgot why I was like not getting Black Armory, but there was a reason. But I had fake ones made. It was it was kind of unhealthy how obsessive I was about getting
yeah,
every title
yeah,
every time, and then
yeah.
there was just like one season where I just couldn't do it, and then after that I was like, oh, it's fine that I
That's
missed
right.
the season, and ever since then it was just like I'm just gonna
I'll
play
say,
as much as I
yeah.
feel like playing.
Honestly, that happened as D1 was transitioning into D2 because
Yeah.
after that triumphs, doing all of
Hmm.
the triumphs just to get that dumb emblem I never wear in D2.
Exactly. It's like I don't care
I
about these
I
things. Why am I
I
trying
just
so
said,
hard?
yeah. You know what's messed up is the very beginning of D2, outside of the story and the PvE. The
Hmm.
very beginning of D2 was really rough for a lot of people because there was this eye-opening moment that everything was reset. There's only so much to do, and you had to basically abandon D1, which at that point we had a lot of stuff in D1, and so we're basically resetting everyone to this
Hmm.
new D2. Which D2, when it first started off, was very strict.
Yeah.
Even the gameplay in Crucible, I think, was the biggest difference. How
Yeah.
hard it was because you were basically limited to locked rolls on
Yeah, locked
weapons.
rolls, double primary.
Yeah,
It was a weird environment. I
very
liked it. I
weird.
liked it in the time of. I was like, no, this is interesting. Like it
Yeah.
changes how we have to play. But ultimately, I much prefer how it is now.
Well, I think they were experimenting with so much stuff. I mean, even Luke Smith, looking back on a lot of the things, I think somebody put it on Twitter, like something old he put out about emblems being the thing that you would be chasing, or shaders. Shaders would be the thing you were chasing. Giving people a reason to explore the new worlds and planets was to get these unique shaders and whatnot. So, like, how many
Hmm.
times have you worn a Nessus shader? You know, I
Well,
mean,
that article came up. I think Paul Tassi retweeted it where it was like
yeah,
kind of shitting on it, and I'm like, before D2 came out, if that's what they said, if they were like, we're gonna make you want to go to this planet to grind for these shaders, I'd be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, yeah, that sounds
yeah,
really cool. They're
yeah,
gonna have these awesome shaders on these planets that I'm gonna want to go get.
yeah.
Ultimately, it didn't pan out like that, and ultimately, you had so many of those damn shaders. So, I mean, if they were like, hey,
Yeah, because
every
they were consumable back then.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
you wouldn't use them because you didn't like them. And
Yeah.
even if you liked them, you only needed like 5. You didn't need 50. You didn't need 100.
Right.
Like but like right now if they wanted to like kind of reevaluate the shader system, not the system, the shader acquisition system, and be like every planet has a shader, every lost sector has a shader, every dungeon has a shader, every raid has a shader, maybe every dungeon boss itself has a shader, because dungeon raids used to have 2 or 3 shaders.
Two that I
Because it
remember, because
yeah,
there was like Glowhu on Crota's
yeah, and there
whatever.
was the
But
the one that made it the
yeah,
bronzy gold.
yes. Well, some of those were tied to Eris too. So
No, Eris had her own 3. There
yeah,
was
there you go.
there was so Crota's End, because that's the one I am thinking of as well. It had the shader that made your armor look like Crota's End armor, and then they also had Glowhu, and
Right, there you go.
then King's Fall had one that made you look
Red.
War Priest colored, I think, and then one that made you look armor colored. I forget.
Was
I
Volta Glass 2 shaders or just the Chatter White?
I cannot remember.
Well,
Because it used to have
anyway,
normal mode shader and hard mode shader. But I mean, that's just what I'm saying though. Like,
yeah,
if they were like, and not like a 1% or maybe even a 1% drop rate. If they were like, here's this item, it's got a low drop rate. It does not matter. It's a shader. It's a ship. It's a whatever. It's tied to this boss. You can farm this boss to get this item. It's not like the standard once a week. If you don't get it, go fuck yourself. But it's like you can just do it over and over and over and over again. And it's like the best looking fucking shader in the game. And it's like, I guess I'm going to farm this boss for a bit and see if I get it.
yeah. I
Like,
mean,
that's,
it would
I'm
definitely
all
get
for it.
people. It definitely get people back in those open worlds that
Yeah.
they spent so much time developing.
Yeah. And if they were to like have like the Brig event on Europa, which is like a Europa exclusive unique event, if that had a weapon or an armor or a shader
Sure.
or a ship, like anything like that, where it's just like we're gonna give you a reason to be here. Like I would appreciate that. I feel like they kind of lost that identity.
Well, there's so much. There was so much melee happening at the time, and so many
Hmm.
things to wrangle and deal with. I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
not
and
only that,
yeah, priorities, absolutely.
yeah,
I just hope in the far
in the
future.
future, yeah. That's the sad thing is like in D1, like even those really cool, creepy ornamental shader things that happen on
Mm,
the armor when you went back to all the and did them a certain way, you got the
yeah, the Age of Triumphs ones.
yeah. So
Yeah, those are sweet.
we only got to use them for like a month before the new game came out.
They Bungie Bungie really debated me
Uh
with the
huh.
last TWAB, because they were saying how they're gonna be bringing back an old raid. They're gonna be introducing an old raid with new origin perks or something. And at first read, I was like, Wrath of the Machine confirmed. And then I read it again, and I was like, oh, they mean like Dreaming City, don't they? Our Last Wish, don't they? And it fucking got me so hard. And I was like, God damn it. I was so excited because I love Wrath of the Machine armor in the first place. I think it's like a really clean look. And specifically, I loved how the ornaments for it, it didn't like change too much about it. It just like it like deconstructed the Siva. So like your shoulder plate, instead of being solid, it was like crumbling and like kind of floating up into the air, but like infinitely floating up into the air.
That's
Like
so cool.
it
You know,
was
I
it
still
was
think
such an awesome effect.
I still think there is a place for something akin to Siva, and maybe it'll be red. It'll be
Yeah.
for this
Oh, what you mean
symmetry.
like a subclass?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
not necessarily a Siva
No.
subclass, but something tied to
My
religion.
my absolute like dream for the future of Destiny is that it's two parts. Part one is they unlock the kinetic energy slot
Yeah.
because it is not kinetic anymore. So do away with it. Both slots can have either weapon. It can be solar, solar, arc, 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 void. You know, however you want it. They can just go into
Sure.
slot A or slot B, and it's exclusively primary and special weapons. Heavy weapons are still in the heavy weapon slot. You know, just that's where
Yeah.
they go. It's everything else. It's slot A, slot B. That's part A. Part B is you have weapons like Thorn. You have weapons like Necrochasm. No, it's not in the game.
Necrocat.
You potentially have weapons like Necrochasm, which will never actually return to the game because Osteostriga is a better Necrochasm. So
Yeah,
you
you're right.
have Osteostriga. You have Witherhoard, which is different, but I'll get to it. And you have the Outbreak Perfected. So instead of these weapons all being kinetic, they should all be a unique damage type that's just for the weapon. You know,
Okay,
and then you can just like flesh it out. It's like here's Weapon of Sorrow damage type, whatever you want to call
gotcha.
it, like fancy name.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's
yeah.
a Siva damage type. We're not going to get a subclass because you can't have a Siva subclass. That's not a thing. It doesn't fit within the parameters of like what a Guardian is,
I
but
guess
it
you're right.
can be a weapon.
That makes a very valid argument for like what is a subclass.
Yeah,
'Cause that does make sense.
but
Um,
it's like it lets you have your cake and eat it too type of thing where you know they can flesh out like a Siva arsenal and it's like oh my god, did you get the new Siva heavy machine gun? It's fucking amazing because it's like solar does like solar intrinsic perks like igniting and scorching and things like that. It's like Siva can have Siva intrinsic perks. You get a Siva weapon, you're looking for Siva intrinsic perks, you know,
imagine if
things
they
like that.
imagine if they attributed weapon specific perks to ornament, and you could Sivify like your anarchy weapon,
That
or
would be
Sivify. Yeah, you know what I
I
mean.
love and hate that. That is so
Yeah,
funny though.
yeah, but like take them out of the high pool or the pay for
Yeah.
pool, and then put
Well,
them in the attain for.
we should get to the lore book
Yeah, we
before
should get the lore book. Go for it.
we get too far down these rabbit holes, which are very
Okay,
fun to talk about.
so you're the rabbit holes.
Yeah. That's good. Wait, no, it's not. No, no, it is. Wait, what year is it? I forget now.
So you're
Why
the
did
rabbit.
it was not that I'm upset because it's a great shade. It's a great ornament. However, Risk Runner already has a number of great ornaments,
Sure.
but it has the Jade Rabbit logo on the fucking ornament. Why isn't it a Jade Rabbit ornament?
You know, who knows?
Is it just because Risk Runner is better in standard content?
Sure.
Either way. So this lore book comes from Season of the Plunder. It is above all else. And so just like a quick summary of it is you're following Mithrax's mother and some parts, specifically Mithrax, as she grows up and leaves Reese and comes to our system. Reese being the fallen homeworld. So I'll read. We should have enough time if I read quick.
Yep.
So entry one is the Long Drift. My family named me Ithrix, Sturdy Heart, and held me aloft in the shadow of the great machine. My birth name was chosen to extol my strength as a hatchling. My chosen name would be aspirational. On my third molting, I chose the name Inax, Gentle Hands. I would be the greatest weaver of our house has ever known. I was so sure of it. Then our world ended. Then I was sure of nothing. The end of our civilization came from the outside in, like a hand slowly closing around a throat. At first, it didn't feel real. Reese was gone, and my house was trapped aboard a ketch. Knowing that there was nothing at our backs for so long, we broadcasted distress calls into the dark, hoping for others on the long drift to find us and offer succor. Help never came. Every satellite world we visited, the story was the same: desolation, death, despair. Weeks of searching turned into years, and I feared we were the only ship that slipped between those proverbial fingers of destruction. Were we the last? We had to continue hoping it wasn't so. As we drifted among the stars, we inevitably lost members of our house along the way. I wove the finest memorial shrouds for our dead, so that they could rest in security and peace. Then, as the egg cloth ran out, we could not give them the dignity of binding. My gentle hands were eventually used to separate dead meat from carapace. We would not starve in the dark. I don't know what's up with my breathing when I read out loud.
It's fine. Sounds
No,
good.
it's like I get like winded when I like have like a long sentence. I gotta get that looked at. My son was brought into the world of isolation, abandonment, and suffering. I should have crushed his egg and woven it into cloth, a regret I will always carry. My sentimentality for the old world won out, and bitter hope for the future stayed my hand. I named him after my father. I did not know if he would carry on the house's tradition of birth names and chosen names. What purpose did it serve now? What did it matter? My son's father died weeks after the birth. He was not missed. It was better that way. His death was something I did not regret. It would be years before we encountered another catch. It bore the sigil of the House of Dancers, renowned for their skill with machines, and their generosity to those in need. Their Kell agreed to send an emissary to discuss our needs. I knew this emissary, Aramis, when we were children. All I knew of her in adulthood was that she had a wife and hatchlings. I had hoped the whirlwind had taken it all from her. I hated myself for wanting that. Aramis was no longer the meek child I once knew. That much was certain when I greeted her aboard my ketch. She brought the two hatchlings with her, just barely old enough to walk on their own. They were mischievous little things, the round one constantly trying to tug the taller one's arms off until Aramis disciplined them. I carried my son, swaddled to my chest, as a show of trust. Negotiations between us were tense. I quickly realized that the House of Dancers had no interest in sharing their resources, but rather in assessing our own vulnerabilities when it was clear to Aramis that we could not easily be disabled and stripped of our ether. We found a compromise. House of Dancers would be supplied with materials for repairs, and in turn, we would take on some of their people along with a fractional store of ether. She was sending them to die with us, rather than condemn them to the cold and uncaring depths of space where her people could see. I learned who Aramis had become and what ideal she lived by. Two hands in greeting, two hands concealed. It was an inequitable deal, and Aramis knew it. Your alternative is death, she offered me. A coward's voice slipped out of my mouth when I declined that choice. I asked her where her wife was, hoping it would inspire her to feel, for a moment, as hopeless as I did. She did not so much as flinch, then foisted the two hatchlings onto me. They were not hers, as I had assumed, but the first of the House of Dancers that we would take in exchange. Too many hands, not enough ether to go around. The simplest solution was also the most difficult one. We had a way to thin out the numbers again. We had to find a way to thin out the numbers again. So, That was the longest entry in this lore book. But it covered a lot of ground. The whirlwind is when the darkness and Oryx arrived at Reese, the fallen homeworld, and basically made them scatter.
Yeah.
And so in here, a lot of talk was of the House of Dancers, which might sound like a new house. And it's technically an old house that became a house that we know. Aramis is a House of Devils member. Dancers eventually became devils, and I think it's a nice touch that they said dancers renowned for their skill with machines, because in Rise of
Yeah.
Iron, everything with Siva, like they
Good
were,
catch.
yeah, they were like really on that.
Splicers, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they were so good with tech that they would augment their own bodies.
yeah,
I mean Taniks. Look at that.
yeah. Well, Tanix isn't devil.
Well, I know, but just I'm talking about the capacity of
Yeah,
fallen. Yeah.
yeah. The House of Devils took it a step further, where by the time of Rise of Iron, they had forsaken the Traveler. They had decided the Traveler wasn't worth anything, and that they themselves could ascend to godhood by becoming one with a machine through Siva. The first and only to fully do that was Axis, and in later entries from Rise of Iron, Axis was shown to be losing their own identity and their own control of their body, where Siva was now taking over. And
Well, they
the
were they
other,
were becoming basic
yeah, I
machiniforms,
mean,
and
yeah,
yeah, losing all of their will, and
yeah,
they
where
thought
decisions
that's
were
what's so
being made not
yeah
by
yeah
him.
yeah because they thought it's so crazy because they thought that they were being enhanced,
Yeah,
ascending to godhood,
yeah,
but in actuality they were just being converted into simple machine, whatever,
and
binary.
the so Axis was the Archon Prime, which is a combination of Archon Priest and Prime Servitor. That's how the title of like God ascended,
Hmm.
and Axor, I think his name was. Axor was the Arch. No, damn it. No, that Axor Archon Priest is from House of Wolves. Oh well. There was another one who his second in command, who was a boss in the Wrath of the Machine raid, who they hadn't gone through a full conversion, but they had gone through more of a conversion than anyone else had. While all of the devil splicers, which are different from splicers as we know Mithrax to be, the other devil splicers had gone through like minor augmentation and not full augmentations. Anything more to add?
No, I just think that's cool because this is a nice little background because we know inevitably splicers like stuff, and we've already experienced splicer stuff. Uh, Kind of cool because it shows the capacity of Fallens to kind of this like really good hacker of
Mm-hmm.
universe or what.
Yeah.
So their capacity for dealing with machines and how they even look to the Traveler as the great machine just shows their whole culture around, tech,
Mm-hmm.
mechanics and stuff like
Yeah, they were really tech focused.
that.
They were
Yeah.
kind of the perfect candidate for this. But then so entry 2 is the Whispering Dark. We had sailed the long drift for centuries, but I had yet to come to terms with our new reality. My son had only borne witness to a fraction of it. He was still young, still struggling to understand his place in the world. The two children from the House of Dancers, Rackus and Civix, were slightly older and had become his reluctant friends. They protected him from the adolescents who would steal his ether when I wasn't looking. It was not a family to me, not truly. I had yet to understand that catches kin. Once we found the great machine, we learned that it had uplifted a whole new species, granted them power beyond anything it had ever bestowed to us. The betrayal drove some in our house to despair. others to death and many to violence. Adapting to this betrayal was to be our next challenge. I listened to the poison-minded advice of soft-shelled cowards and tried to speak with the great machine's new chosen, our usurpers. They repaid the machine's kindness with violence, killed 3 of my closest friends. I later discovered that they shucked the carapaces and wore the chitin as armor. We learned all we could about these usurpers, like how their limbs were supple and could be pulled from their bodies far easier than our own kind. I came to love the sound of their screams. If violence was the only language they spoke, so be it. Time had made me fluent. Some of my house refused to abandon the old ways. Fools draped themselves in the naive raiment of splicers, praying to a god that doomed us all. They could contemplate their failure with what was left of their lives in the cold dark. I had no time for them, save the goading them into raids. If we wanted to retake the great machine, we would not do it by prostrating ourselves like weeping children. We would take it back by force. We killed the machine's chosen, taking what we could, rooting through the rotten innards of their dying world. We took refuge in the shadows of their dusty moon, where the usurpers' ruins stuck out like bones from the dust. It was empty, it was silent, but there was value to be had in picking those old bones clean. On one such expedition, I had strapped my son to me and set out to pick over a bounty of bones. But it was not these spools of spin cable, the plates of hard sheet, or the fragments of clear cut that proved most valuable. It was what we found buried beneath the bones, what was buried deep. We traversed that day into dark tunnels, where something hideous festered beneath the moon's surface. Horrific creatures that stank of wet soil, shrieked like dying animals, and tore at flesh. They possessed a ferocity we had never seen before, and my raiding party was being whittled down one by one. But when it seemed like these creatures were to finish off the rest of us, they relented. They appeared to hear something that terrified them, something that left us to wonder, what are monsters afraid of? The creatures scurried back to their warrens and vanished into the subterranean temple they spilled out of. And for a moment, I thought I heard something too, something soft, a whisper, but as forceful as a scream. And that was when we saw it, situated in a rift beyond the temple, the true treasure of this dusty tomb, a pyramid of jet black opening its doors to us.
There's a lot to unpack with just that last paragraph.
Yeah, so
Two paragraphs.
Before we get to that though, there is a little thing that I'm pretty sure was actually kind of half explained in the story of Season of the Plunder. Rakis is Spider. So Mithrax is adopted brother is Spider. The one that people might have missed is that Civix is also someone we know. Civix was the boss from Black Armory. He led the Kel's Scourge. So he was in the Niobe Labs, I think. He was either in Niobe Labs or he was in the other European Dead Zone Black Armory Forge, where you had the 3 sections with the tanks, spider tanks.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with this.
I mean, that was it.
Oh, okay.
just the fact that Spider and Civix were Mithrax's brothers. It's an interesting.
I like how
tidbit.
they tell you about the pudgy round one that.
Yeah, and that one's Spider. Oh my god, yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Like I just love the idea that for whatever reason, Spider was always just round.
Always round. Yeah.
Always round. It's like that's not how Elixir usually are. All right. And as you were saying, those last couple paragraphs. So there's 2 ways to look at this, and I feel like one way is an intentional misdirect.
Yeah, I could get that.
Well, you might not know which way I'm saying is a misdirect. So we traversed it that day in the dark tunnels where something hideous festered beneath this moon's surface. Horrific creatures that stank of wet soil shrieked like dying animals and tore at flesh. So that line right there is immediately drawing back also to Black Armory. where we learned of the creatures that attacked during the collapse. And
Yep.
so we don't know how long they've been traveling, how immediately the traveler got to us, but the timing might just be perfect that they are arriving just at the end of the collapse, like the end of the like initial sequence, so that
Hey,
these
that's cool.
creatures, huh?
Yeah, no. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so these creatures, which were direct denizens of the witness, were still kind of around, and so that's one way of looking at it, and that's the way I think it's the accurate way of looking at it. The other way is to think, oh, these just must be the hive. And I understand why you might think that. They're on the moon, they were in the tunnels, etc., things like that. Two things about that. The tunnels were not dug by the hive.
Five,
That's actually
exactly.
a really old D1 scannable
Yep.
where they were like,
Yep.
the hive didn't make these tunnels. Why don't
It's on a
we don't
it's
know
on a
what did.
crucible map. Yeah, it's on a crucible
Mm-hmm.
map, and it has to do with those tunnels where you find the bones, and the tunnel is
Mm-hmm.
literally the rib cage skeleton
Yep.
of those animals that were there before.
Yeah.
And so so
That
no,
people
I'm on the
attribute
same.
to be the
Yeah,
worm gods, but it's like, but
but
why
they're
would
not.
worm
Yeah,
gods be digging the
yeah.
holes?
No worm gods there,
Yeah.
but potentially something other than a
Yeah.
worm god that
Definitely
created
something
these
other
holes.
because worm gods don't have rib cages like that. They have a carapace,
Right,
like everything else. And
right.
so what I'm saying, and also not only were those tunnels not dug by the hive, just used by the hive, not only,
That's right.
but
There
the
you go.
hive, the hidden swarm on the moon in Shadowkeep and also Destiny 1, they were searching for the pyramid. These creatures are right there. They're coming from the pyramid. They're coming from the temple at the pyramid. They're not.
Yeah,
They're
they
not
were
looking for the
burrowing
pyramid.
to
Yeah,
get to that spot. And if
yeah.
you think about that, because you think about where's the Hall of Wisdom located and how the
Mm-hmm.
technology in that area, as they got closer to where the pyramid would technically be located under way underneath, um, it's just funny that the naming convention for the Hall of Wisdom, almost as if they had found something
Yeah,
do that, just never got there.
and
But like in early D1, we know the hive were burrowing into
yeah,
the moon. Like it literally is in the
yeah.
grimoire that.
So until Shadowkeep, they had not found the pyramid. We found them
Yeah,
as they were like maybe 2-3 months after finding it. Like we weren't like
right.
right there day one, but they had recently found it. And this,
Well, there's even the line that sticks out to me in the 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 book for the all over the place today. The main book for the hive. The anyway, it tells
the
about
Books of
Oryx and the
Sorrow.
seven. Yeah, no, the main books of sorrow. So like in there, when the proto hive were looking for the ship that Oryx finally
Mm-hmm.
gets, they were actually looking for a different ship,
Yeah,
and
then
then they
when
found
they found the needle.
yes. So then there was also the talk of the Nika Thought ship,
Mm-hmm.
which yeah. So there's these ships that are out there that predate what we know of conventional hive that were very much a part of the. And so I'm
You
immediately
really are
going
all
to.
over the place.
Well, no, I know. I'm immediately going there because I'm thinking about the hive's tenacity burrowing into the
Yeah.
moon to find a ship, which
No,
they know to be a pyramid of
it's
some
it's
sort.
it's it's a repeating theme for them. I
Yes.
see what you're saying. It's just funny how
Yeah.
you got there. It's all
Yeah, that's my curse.
yeah.
That's my
No, I'm the
superpower and my
same way.
curse.
I just find it funny because I am the same way.
Yeah.
But so ultimately, the case I'm making is this is not the hive. These are probably tormentors, if anything. I think the wet oil and shrieking and all that stuff is going to be tormentors. So this
That would
might
be
be a
cool.
tease to tormentors that we're getting right here.
So what you're hearkening back to, which we didn't talk about exactly, is when in the Black Armory lore they talk about
Oh, I
the
touched on it.
machines. Yeah, so they're like just for people tuning in.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
So just tell them what that is.
Oh, well, during the Black Armory, as the Black Armory, the group, as they were like huddled in their fortress trying to survive the collapse, there were like big ogre creatures that smelled like wet oil, and they made noises that sounded like machine being like stretched and compressed. And they didn't really get a
Wet
good look
earth.
at them. Oh, I said the wet earth.
You said wet oil.
Well, wet soil,
Oh, wet soil. Oh, sorry.
because that's what this says. This called it wet soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Well,
most
earth,
this
wet, soil.
yeah.
Get it.
And they were kind of taking like shots from around the corner, kind of not able to actually see it, type of thing. I'm like very confident it's gonna be a tormentor.
I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope you're right, because that'll wrap up that nice little callback.
yeah.
Maybe not the tormentors were creating the tunnels, but that
Oh no, just that
yeah,
other
yeah,
things created tunnels. Tormentors were
and
there.
yeah, there you go. Okay.
And so entry 3, chosen, and this is well, I'll just get into it. My mother could not keep me swaddled to her chest forever. I was no longer a child and no longer in need of sheltering. I was my own person, and it was time that she understood that. I knew that she loved me because she shared her ether with me, because she killed those who harmed me, because she wanted better for me than the life we had. But we are not always the arbiters of our own fate. I aspired to nothing short of her approval. She was our inspiration, our leader, our hope, Kel of our house, and protector of our people. She gave me a name that meant strength above all else. She named me Misrax, and I was now strong enough to bear it. On the day I told her I was capable of raiding at her side, we sat together in a cargo hold of her ketch. There was not pride in her eyes I had hoped for. She was transfixed by the medallion around my neck, an icon of the great machine, one I had taken from the corpse of a splicer, one I had earned through blood. She tore it from my neck, crushed it in her hand. This will not protect you, she shouted at me. This will only lead to death. I had never feared my mother before, but I had never seen her look at me that way she did that day. She pushed me up against the wall with her upper arms and pressed the bent charm against my brow. No son of mine will beg for scraps in the shadow of the abandoner. But even as she threatened me, I felt her press something into one of my hands, a reliquary, one of the few she had forged from the treasures of the moon. She saw the recognition on my face and stepped back, releasing me. I could tell she wanted me to inspect it. I had never seen one of the reliquaries up close before, and though the glass was clear, the oily fluid inside obscured everything embalmed within. Yet still, I felt its presence warming behind my eyes like roots of a great tree burrowing into soil. It whispered to me, not with words, but with promises, blooming behind my eyes in visions of glory. When I looked up to my mother, I asked her why could we not have both? Why could we not seek the power we had stolen from the moon and simultaneously earn the right to seek refuge beneath the great machine once more? You are brave and curious, my mother mused, but you do not yet understand the brutality of the world. Then she showed me. She drove a knife into my side, twisted it, and split my carapace apart. I did not give her the satisfaction of hearing me scream. Let this be your first lesson, she said to me. You are my crew now, and when your crew questions your leadership, you make an example of them. She drew the knife out of my side and handed it to me. Never forget that. I promised her I won't.
Rough stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they're in a really complicated situation.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good because this was aptly named the Chosen. We know about Misrax and the reliquaries now, which had to do with.
Yeah, it's a lot of like good retroactive foreshadow where like obviously we know where it goes, but like he was always
It's
on this path.
there was nothing he could do about it. Also,
Yeah.
it kind of shows you, it kind of holds a mirror to society, people that are locked within certain groups or families or gangs or whatever you want to call it, and just having to rely on your leader. But then there's also this dark side.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they are on this path where they recognize the traveler, great abandoner.
Yeah.
Basically, that they feel they feel forsaken by the
Hmm.
traveler. They feel like why has all of this happened? That everybody's
It
everybody's folly came from believing in the traveler, basically.
it seems like a weird choice for Mithrax's mother specifically to have like come so far chasing the traveler to found it and ultimately hold the position or the opinion of the traveler abandoned us and we will never seek to sit beneath it again, and at the same time have found power, have found the
Yes,
reliquaries,
yeah,
and
I
then
think that's the
decided to
key right there.
stay. But the fact that
Yeah.
she stayed in the system is what's like weird to me. Because in my head, you'd be like, you know what? We followed you here. You didn't want us. You gave other people more. We found power. Like, fuck you. We're out.
Yeah.
We're gonna take the power and go somewhere else. Why are we fighting a war? Like, why are we dooming
Well,
ourselves?
and it could be that, maybe there's something not being said here. It could be
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they recognized and understood the ultimate threat was on its way. The
But
only
that's what
way
I
to
mean.
really
Like the ultimate threat was on its way, so you're gonna stay where it's coming.
well, it's that age old conundrum of either fight or flight, right? You're going to either survive by fighting or fly or find a way or leaving or whatever. And I don't know that necessarily they saw that fleeing was an option or going
Yeah.
somewhere else
I
to
mean,
be,
I
heralds.
don't see that as fleeing personally. I am very aligned with the dead orbit philosophy, where it's
Sure,
like
me too.
if you know you're gonna stay here and you're just gonna die and you have the ability to leave, you have the ability to leave. Why are you not? Why are you not spreading out as far as you can so someone can survive instead of huddling up and being like, yeah, yeah, and then little by little you become smaller and smaller and you just keep accepting the fact that you're becoming smaller and smaller until you're all
Yeah,
gone.
I'm with you.
You roboted there.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, I'm with you. I'm
Oh,
with you on
okay.
that one.
Because it sounded like you went like, meh, coom. And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
It's the Vex.
Yeah. Well, we have one more entry, so let's read this, and because we're cutting it close. We had discovered a ship full of human usurpers hiding behind one of the moons of a dusty red world they called Mars. Generations of survivors cowering on a derelict colony ship since the Great Machine failed them. Civics, Rackus, and I led the raiding party that boarded their vessel. The humans were malnourished and pitiful, yet they still tried to fight us. The battle was short and brutal. I watched Rackus rip the usurper's arms out of the sockets and throw them on the floor. He was so strong back then. We all were. Our growing ether shares were intoxicating, and it was the bloodlust of the unrestricted violence. Rackus was massive, even then, stronger than all of us. One of the human champions, if they could be called such, challenged Rackus. The rest of us stood by as he tore the human's limbs off one by one, then crushed what was left of the champion's head between his hands. The other humans threw down their arms and begged for their lives of those who did not fight. Noble, but foolish. I corralled the survivors into an airlock and sealed them inside. Rackus and Civics disagreed with me on how we should handle them. Rackus suggested that they would be more valuable in servitude rather than being given to the cold dark. Imagine it, he asked me, usurpers wearing the sigil of our house, doing our bidding for us. Civics seemed amused by this notion. Usurpers serving us? We could steal back the great machine's favor by taking from them their identity. Rackus reached for the airlock controls, and I struck his hand away. He looked at me with confusion and attempted again, disrespecting my leadership in front of the others. I knew I had to do something. Without hesitation, I evacuated the airlock into space, killing our captives. The brothers, angered, fought back. I held honor to my aspirations, strength above all. I butchered half the dregs loyal to Rackus and Civics, and then turned their blades on the brothers. In spite of their struggle, they ended the battle at my feet, half their followers dead and others huddled in fear. My mother was fluent in the language of violence, but I was eloquent. I marooned Rackus and Civics on an asteroid for their final punishment, along with their surviving crew, and left them with a knife and my mother's lesson. When your crew questions your leadership, you make examples of them. I returned to the ketch, towing the derelict colony ship. When I told my mother what had become of Rackus and Civics, I expected her to approve, but instead I saw something haunted in her eyes. I thought she was ashamed of me, of what I had done, but I was only following her example. I was victorious, and yet in victory I felt emptier than in failure. It was not until much later that I realized the truth. My mother was not ashamed of me. She was ashamed of herself.
Boom.
Yeah. That's a really good book.
That's a good line.
Yeah. Had a
Yeah.
lot of like quality like lore, like history that we it feels like we've kind of gotten less of more recently than I like. Like it's queuing up a number of things. So I'm really
Sure.
excited for the
It shows you for one how Spider ended up where he is, where he
yeah.
was. Yeah.
I wonder because it's like, well, I mean that's actually a fantastic point, but I wonder if like something more happened there because they were left a knife, right? So like, did like Civics fuck up Spider, and like that's
Well,
why he is
yeah.
how he is.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like the mother automatically realizes or realizes the folly of her ways in the
Mm-hmm.
end because she basically raised a much more efficient, better version of herself. But
Yeah,
once she sees what his tenacity is and his capacity is, what he has done, wake of her growing him and basically grooming him into this way of thinking and thought and leadership style. Uh, the falling of what happened is got now you've got I mean now you've just basically torn it all apart and made this craziness that's about to happen. Sorry,
yeah.
she's stunned by it, but also like feeling the weight and the gravity of it's almost like that what have I done moment.
And I think they don't like say it, but I don't think it needs to be said. I think in that moment when she's like thinking, "What have I done?" It's going back to the first entry, where she's talking about how she named him. My sentimentality for the old world won out, and the bitter hope of the future stayed my hand. I named him after my father. I did not know if he would carry on our house's tradition of birth names and chosen names. What purpose did it serve now? What did it matter? So, like back then, when she named him Misrax, she was hoping that there would kind of be like a piece of the old Reese living within
Yeah,
him, and then
yeah,
she fucking cut all of that out of him, and he was like, okay, my name is Misrax, and that means strength above all else. I did not choose a new name. I kept Misrax as my name, and because of my mother's actions, I like took that to heart. Where like her name originally was Sturdy Heart, and then it became Gentle Hands. It's like it seems like strength above all else was meant to kind of make him strong to endure, not strong to hurt. But in her raising of Miss Rax, he kept it strong to hurt instead of strong to endure.
yeah. Well, and it's all great. All of this in a in whole and a perspective is all great because now we know Mithras
Yeah.
how he's become basically exactly supposed to, just in a different path and different life. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's a very good lore book. And on our next show, we're gonna be. I think I actually said it at the top of the show, but just to be safe, we're gonna be finishing the Persona lore book from this season, and that's gonna be on February 5th. And then the show after that will be the week before. It's on the 28th. February 28th is Lightfall, right?
Yes.
So then we're gonna have the 19th, which is, oh shit, that sucks. 2 weeks before. Okay,
Hmm.
we'll get to it when we get to it. We might
Switch it up.
opt into delaying an episode a week so that we have more time with the first couple weeks of the season. The expansion, it's a big one, you know.
It's huge.
Yeah. All right. I think we're out of time because I know it's
Yep.
a little later than we usually do. So our next show, as I said, is going to be on February 5th. Same time, same place, same deal. If you want to find more of us, at Loose Cannon Show on Twitter, and we have our link tree posted there, so you can find us from all over. But we do put it on YouTube. We do put it on podcasting. If you came in late and you want to just listen or you want to watch. So,
Bye.
bye everybody.